In today's news, nothing to hear, nothing to see. All is well with democracy, and the good guys are in charge. Our lead story of the evening involves an incident in South Boston, where...
Not attempt to adjust your equipment. We are in control. This is Sinister Mysteries. Tonight, we bring you another disturbing case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
All right.
Hola.
Hey,
Hola.
our tech intern is doing a little better every week.
Yeah, well, it just takes a little practice. Yeah. Welcome,
I'm the tech
everybody.
intern. Yeah. Well, welcome to what is this, 54?
Yes.
And so Craig, a lot of what we do harbors on a lot of trust. And Craig trusted me when I went to him and I said, hey, I was reading this autobiography of Theodore Roosevelt by Nathan Miller, which is very, it's awesome, guys. If you want to know what was going on at the turn of the century in the United States, if you want to get a little insight into the fact why Trump isn't the only president like Trump, study Theodore Roosevelt. The way he handled the press, the way he did daily briefings, the way if you didn't say something that he liked, you weren't invited into the White House briefings anymore. And there's Craig, I'm going to save it to the end. There's a really interesting overlap between Theodore Roosevelt and Donald Trump when it comes to the Panama Canal.
Yeah, and before we get too far, like I said, this will one that you'll know too. It's just I'm not sure if you actually heard this. Just rest in peace to David Lynch. Passed away today.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I know you're a huge fan of one of his creations, and so I said for the people that, yep, he passed away today. So rest in peace, David Keith Lynch.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, all of his work. I made a post about it on Facebook and said there really is no other creator in film or long form narrative, so television series, that I have spent more time revisiting, trying to understand, reading essays about. His work is super challenging. He was super stubborn. He had a really, really sharp vision. He's a guy I try to aspire to in a lot of ways. So it's almost like another mentor passed. Yeah,
and the one that's for people that welcome. Three Beards podcast. Crew, like I said, I was finally able. We were figured. Well, I'm not sure what happened. We were having problems where it wouldn't connect to that channel, so it's back. So at least, so we're schooling there. So but same thing. Follow the other channel just in case, so that way you don't miss this episode. I'm going to try to do it,
because and that's really smart because we did it. It just reappeared. So I had a bunch of dead end conversations with the platform because everything is AI now. Everything is canned responses, and I wasn't getting any. Yeah. So
happy early birthday to Ron at Radio.
Hey.
Yeah, it's Tuesday. He said was his birthday, so we'll get that out there just because otherwise it'll be belated. Yeah, I know it.
Okay, yeah, everybody's looking in the chat room and going, "What the hell just happened?" I saw Tanya's message, and my brain because it forgot she was my wife. So I was like, Tanya.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it works.
I am working so many hours. My head is like oatmeal.
Yeah,
that's do good tonight.
Yeah, this was a good one. Just especially because like you rolled it. It's it's kind of apropos. I mean, because everything what happened right around the beginning of, the 20th century,
Yeah.
right? So just when this, JP Morgan was kind of top of the game. He was fast. I mean, his prodigy, just came out, and his namesake was monster returns. Did you see that?
Yeah.
58
Yeah.
billion last year in profit
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
JP. I mean, so you can just see the long standing and think it's kind of, in how they always say, history repeats itself. Over
It
100 years,
does.
100 years later, here we are, and we have our generation's pretty much JP Morgan, who's
Yeah.
got his all facets. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to break into. So this is where I leave it to the professional who lays out the groundwork.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, I got to put pressure.
The guy with OCD. No, I am. This is so well prepared and laid out tonight. I will take it tonight in a walk. That's not
It's a
always the
perfect
case.
meld, OCD and ADD.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it really is. I mean, that's Sonia and I. So, and my I don't really talk about this, so I'll just say it real fast and move on. But my Bergie brain, which kind of cooks the OCD to a new level. But anyhow, so we're going to begin at the beginning, but we're really going to get right into the meat of the matter. The meat of the matter is industrial monopoly, incredible wealth, and really outsized American and international influence. That's really what these guys have in common. And I just found out something really interesting about Musk before we went live, because I really do take the research down to the wire, always looking what's the latest thing. So anyway, JP Morgan was born into a wealthy banking family. His father was an influential international banker. So it was laid out there. These guys did not make their fortunes. Elon Musk, born into a wealthy South African family. Father was an engineer. Family wealth came partly from an emerald mine. And we know diamond mines, emerald mines, the atmosphere in South Africa, all that kind of stuff. Hey, woo. So their education, JP Morgan was educated in Europe. So he knew Europe intimately. And that's where a lot of his father's really strong connections were. He studied at the University of Göttingen to enhance his understanding of finance and commerce. So from the time he was a wee lad, Morgan knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a financier like his dad. He knew the power that came with all of this kind of stuff. Elon Musk studied primarily in South Africa before moving to the US. This guy arguably is genius level. Plus, he's he has autism or Asperger's or whatever that accounts for a lot of his quirks. But he's pretty full on genius and holds degrees in physics and economics from UPenn. Some people I've talked to said, he was kind of lackluster, whatever. But UPenn, that's tough and that's prestigious. JP's early ambition, I talked about that. He joined his father's banking firm in his 20s. So Craig, right out of college, jumped right into the family business, and I'm sure grew up in it. Probably was allowed as a teenager to sit in on meetings. Probably was introduced as the heir apparent. Musk created and sold his first software, which was a game, when he was 12 years old. And then in 1999, Craig and I like to stitch things together. In 1999, he founded X.com. So X has been his brand for a really long time. And it offered online banking and payments. Then the next year, it merged with a company called Confinity, founded by Peter Thiel. So we see, Craig, how 25 years later, these guys are the power behind the throne, the juggernaut that we have been talking about. They developed security software for handheld devices. Musk, as CEO, was ousted by the board in September 2000. Thiel replaced Musk as CEO. So these guys are, like brothers. They fight sometimes. It was rebranded then as PayPal in 2001. So when people say that Elon Musk co-founded PayPal, it's splitting hairs, but technically he did it.
Yeah.
But he kind of did. But and when it became PayPal, it was just about digital wallets. So he was already gone. Yet the guy got 165 million in seed money from the sale of PayPal to eBay in 2000. So then he was off to the races.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he almost. I mean, it's just even at that point. I mean, this is when it was the early. It was the early thing. I mean, because a lot of people they look at it like he was he almost went broke
Oh yeah.
with SpaceX. I mean, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. It's like, and then it was just like Fortune smiled and they clicked, and then it was just like that's like, and then it just everything kind of hit in with Tesla and everything. It's just, but yeah, he was bleeding cash during that part. I mean, he was.
Yeah. And he is one of those guys, right? So I think of the HBO Succession and Alexander Skarsgård's character. I think of Glass Onion, right? The Knives Out mystery, the second film, are all about tech disruptors. And these are quirky ass guys who send out tweets and get everybody in a kerfluffle. That's what we're going to talk about today. This is dangerous. It's really dangerous to put that much power. I think, Craig, that Elon Musk, he was a guy when he first came up in the 2000s. We were like, whoa, he smokes dope and he's autistic, but he's kind of a genius superhero. He's got this company called Tesla. He's a really cool guy. I think a lot of people like really dug him. And he's undergone this megalomania kind of change during the timeline,
I think that's one of the things too. It's just it's almost like a case study because people can see nothing's changed. It's the same car. It's the same same company. It's like, but because he aligned with the political party, same way you can see like what's going on right now with Facebook. Zuckerberg suddenly is buddying up to the new administration, and all of a sudden people are like, that's it, I'm off this platform, I'm out of here, I'm going on the thing, and you're like, nothing's really changed. Besides, I mean, especially, let's be honest, like people say they don't like the fact checkers. Anybody that's in the paranormal community, anybody that's in like it's like, are we not glad that we don't have those stupid false fact checkers popping up on everything, telling you that your post, this post is wrong? We're like, no, the Mothman was that. It's like I said, you don't need these fact check things popping up on all this stuff. I mean, it's like, that's more important. It's like, yeah, I mean, we just got to the point where there was nobody checking the checkers, and it was just and so you get rid of this, but I mean, everybody's up in arms, and you're like, it's weird just where you watch the ebb and flow just based off of who's on top. And where I'm going with this goes back to the same thing with JP Morgan.
Absolutely.
He was super popular, then he became the villain, then he became popular again, and he was doing the same roller coaster thing as he went through.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how history plays out looking back at the figure that is Elon Musk.
Absolutely. And before
Joey and Craig 2.0, 100 years from now, we'll be talking about, the Elon Musk thing. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I'll be curious to see if our reach on Facebook goes up, if our numbers organically go up. I can track subject matter and audience view. And when we're suppressed. So we'll see. I think there's one more element before we dive into JP Morgan. TikTok is scheduled to kind of go dark and on the 19th, I believe, on Sunday, and the American version, and Zuckerberg really pushed for that. So I wonder if there was a little quid pro quo there too. It's multifaceted.
I wouldn't be surprised in this, and this doesn't stray too far from like our topics here. It's like, because you can see it was clearly the people that were being hurt by the program, because obviously what happens when TikTok goes down, Instagram, Thread, all these stuff, WhatsApp, I mean, all these things, take place, they jump up and they have these, and they're excited. So of course, they're invested in these things happening. But the weird part is like this last week that the same, both aisles there's people that are actually going about trying to save TikTok right now.
Oh yeah.
They're trying to get these, to push this off and give them an extended amount of time if they can show that they're actively trying to, find a buyer,
right?
Which, it's one of those things, follow the money.
Absolutely. Always. Absolutely right. Before we get into JP Morgan, I got to be a little time conscious tonight, folks, because I got a little schedule snafu I'm working through. So I went over to Blue Sky. I'm not leaving Facebook, but so many people are going over to Blue Sky. Blue Sky as an interface looks exactly like Twitter, looks exactly like Threads. It kind of stinks. Those who are used to spending words on Facebook, they give you very few words. So if I want to put my Facebook posts on Blue Sky, I got to really trim my text. I don't really care for it. I just want to tell you where Blue Sky came from. So some years ago, Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter, created Blue Sky as an in-house task team. And that interface was going to eventually replace Twitter. It turned out that they decided to make it an external product and give it some different features and all. So Elon Musk, of course, famously buys Twitter, turns it into X. Jack Dorsey goes on the board of Blue Sky because now it's got new CEOs, chairman, and all of that. In December, Jack Dorsey left the board of Blue Sky and went back to Twitter and tweeted out, "Stay with X, folks." Yep. So we're all hamsters on a wheel. Like everybody's like, "Oh, screw Zuckerberg, I'm going over to Blue Sky," but it's this weird Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's one of those, it's kind of like this thing when everybody's leaving, and that's one thing. Like I've talked to a few people about this too. It's like, okay, you don't like this side, but the beauty of it is you're not forced to engage with anything. This isn't some, there's no gun to people's heads. If you don't like listening to a Republican side or something like that, you don't have to. You can the algorithm doesn't force on you. You can decide don't want it, and you're not going to see it. You're going to see the things that you want. So these people that are freaking out, most of the people that are jumped for Blue Sky were looking for an echo chamber.
Oh yeah, of course.
And that, and that's one of those things. It's like, but if you do your algorithm, if you set your algorithm right, you can have your own echo chamber on, even if Zuckerberg is going to the inauguration on Monday, you can still have your own echo chamber on Facebook. You don't have to follow Charlie Kirk, all these people on this side. If you don't like it, you don't have to follow. You don't have to follow Kraz and Steve. You don't have to follow these guys on Twitter. You can do this whole thing yourself. So that's one of the biggest things. Like everybody jumping for Blue Sky, you're like, all you're doing is you're taking the engagement you have with other people and limiting yourself to a strict echo chamber. And then you don't really have good discourse because you might as well just do the same thing, because now you've limited the information coming in. You basically self-censored yourself to where you're not getting anything but the same information just repeated over and over and over again. And that's not a great experience. And so, one, I haven't even really checked out Blue Sky because I'm like, there's not really a huge diverse voice there. So it's like, I stick with X because I followed my guy, Young Turks. I follow them on X. Yeah, because I'm like, it's people like, well, you don't think the same. Well, I don't follow everybody that thinks the same. I want to see the different stuff. I always say this: pick different points where they cross over. That's the point. That's where you start looking right there. Quit looking at the fringes. Look at where everything crosses over.
That's right. It's like a Venn diagram. One more thing. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, does his last press conference last night and says, "This is my last press conference unless something happens in the next couple days," which, looking back on history, it could. That was pretty screwed up. The National Security Advisor going, "Oh, in case something happens and we come back." So that was interesting. And then we really do have to jump into tonight's. It's getting harder and harder because there's so much to talk about based on everything you and I have been talking about for 54 episodes, but we'll do the best we can. Did you see the footage of the two journalists were escorted out of Anthony Blinken's sex state, his final press conference today, asking questions about genocide and tanking the peace talks in May? They bodily carried this guy out. I will be totally honest with all of you. I cried. I watched it twice and I cried. That does not look like America, where a journalist is bodily carried out by Capitol Police during a press conference with the Secretary of State. because they're asking uncomfortable questions.
Yeah, that's
stunning.
And I mean, like I said, I don't want it to evolve into politics, get it off the rails. But yeah, I'm right there with you.
I know.
Yeah, it's because everybody talks about, fears of what's going to happen. Watch what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
really
the thing. I mean, it's literally happening in real time right now. And everybody's they're quiet. And I'm like, I don't understand. And just like you said, it's appalling to see everybody talks about the press is going to be restricted. It's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like it's happening in real time, and people are so worried about what's going to happen. It's like, pay attention now. I mean, things are happening. It's like that. It's appalling. It really is.
It was really difficult to watch. So one of them that was carried out was Blumenthal. You're going to have to look for it. I think it was actually on X, the footage. So the one was Blumenthal that I haven't seen video on because there probably isn't any. And the other one, the one where there's footage, is Sam Husseini, Husseini, forcibly removed from the briefing room. Craig, and Anthony Blinken, and I've said this before, Anthony Blinken's father was very, very close with Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who was that powerhouse publisher and rumored to be a Mossad agent. So what an interesting time to have a Palestinian-Israeli conflict where your sex state, his father, was really close with alleged Mossad agent. I'm learning.
Yeah. And that's SEC state, not SEX, for people listening. The sex
what?
state.
Yes. Sorry.
SEC, not
sorry. I
secretary, short for secretary.
Secretary of State is referred to as sex state.
For anybody that just hears sex state, it's
Thank you. I appreciate that. Reading an article about Washington Post where they're pivoting big time to AI. Yeah, some other countries and other organizations. It's on, game on, even with the temporal astrology, the big stuff. All of the astrologers are saying that it's a big, big move to AI. I have a little nugget about Elon Musk tonight, but let's go forward here. The hearings are fascinating. The Peter Hegseth one was fascinating to watch as well. These it's interesting. So core industries, JP Morgan dominated banking, finance, financial systems, railroad consolidation, and industrial trusts. What Rockefeller didn't have, Morgan had. He backed Edison after abandoning Tesla. Ironically, the famous Craig, if you can't put a meter on it, I don't want it.
Yep.
That was General Electric.
That was for a lot of people, it's like it's a double-edged sword, because it's horrible, but at the same time, it's also, you understand it as a business owner. It's like, if I can't make money off it, I'm not going to invest time into it.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Earth Radio. Yes. Secretary of State, otherwise known as sex state. What?
Yeah, that's why I said it was
Blinken sex tape. What?
Yeah, no, that's why I was like, he's Secretary of State, not sex tape.
Sorry, guys. It's my I spend too much time alone, reading and editing and thinking. So U.S. Steel was created in 1901 from merging Carnegie Steel, Federal Steel, and National Steel. That was $492 million. When he put that deal together. It's equivalent of an $18 billion deal today. When you have a monopoly, when you have a trust like that, especially with something like steel and the country growing the way it was, you control supply, demand, and pricing. Now, this happened in 1901. This is what happens. This happened in 1901, despite the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act. So we'll see how Roosevelt, on one hand, fought Morgan, but on the other hand, really allowed him to go whole next level. Elon Musk, of course, his core industries, you all know. He revolutionized, I don't know, that's maybe too strong a word, tech, energy, space industry. So you got Tesla, you got SpaceX, you got Solar City, which is his alternative energy, which makes him a really weird bedfellow with Donald Trump. who's very into classic, traditional. So monopoly and market influence and manipulation. And this to me is the most interesting. Morgan was a world player, media, public appearances to build his, like Craig said, it was really a dance with him. Was he a hero? Was he a villain? If he became too much the villain, he and his cronies created the conditions for him to be the hero. So let's watch that with Musk. He was very careful to shape his image as a stabilizing financial force. This guy had so much money that he could bail out countries, including the United States. And he became the symbol, the poster boy for American industrial capitalism. Musk, of course, is criticized for leveraging his social media, which he uses extraordinarily well. I mean, he bought his own platform, business platforms as well, to play the provocateur, the disruptor, influence markets and policy. Think about Dogecoin. Just for fun, on a lark, he had this cryptocurrency and he tweeted about it and it jumped through the roof. Everybody bit and then he crashed it just to show his power. He got off on it.
Now, did you,
yeah.
Now, did you ever, are you, do you understand? I'm not saying follower, like Atlas Shrugged.
I've read it. I read all the Ayn Rand. Yeah.
Because this is one, for the people, like you said, all these voices, like I actually heard, Glenn Beck had referred to this thing, and he referred to Beck, referred to Elon Musk as he said there's a lot of similarities to John Galt.
Yeah, there are. Oh, there
and
are.
That's and you did it, like I said, with the Dogecoin and stuff like this, where because she refers to him as, with the antagonist thing, as that kind of that almost like an arch enemy thing, but calls him the destroyer, those type of things. And so this is one of those things you could see this. It's like, because people would look at the ones that hate the fact that he bought Twitter and changed it to X, they view him as the guy that destroyed free speech, the free, the speech and stuff. And so you can kind of see those similarities, how these things. And so that's where it's a great comparison that Joey came up with, of doing Elon Musk and JP Morgan for this thing is that same thing. It's just like, because you can almost see this thing where they can kind of have this, but they come in and they're almost kind of viewed as that. They become almost that enemy of, like you wrecked it. You wrecked what we had. Yeah.
Yeah. I would think that they were both objectivists. Certainly so. I don't see Elon Musk weeping for the poor. Like, philanthropy really isn't his agenda. You know what I mean? He's not Bill Gates trying to do micro loans and all this kind of stuff, which is a whole self-interest.
Yeah, because it's,
you know what I mean? Yeah,
because there definitely is a self-interest aspect to it. It's like JP Morgan, like what we were just talking about. He wanted, he was looking at this, like, hey, we do this, like, I'm going to unite the railroads. I'm going to do these things. You can see, like, okay, there's a great thing to, like doing this rail. You're going to have this connected thing, but it's through a self-interest. He's benefiting from it. I mean, I've said this one thing. It's like, he says Musk wants to go to Mars, but for the longest time, I've been saying, I think that this is a space race for who can get to the asteroid belt first, because that's who, you want to say, he who controls. I mean, that's the monetary supply. I mean, it's like, if you can get to this thing, you have all the power, because you've got limitless, wealth, if you can get there first. And I think that's what
the moon is about.
Yeah. Because you got
natural resources.
Obi-Wan, Anakin, I have the high ground.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's I think that's absolutely it. So Musk goes really far because he has more tools at his disposal in a way. His strategic announcements and promises about Tesla, for instance, overselling the innovations, autopilot, battery tech, which artificially boosted the stock price. Then another tweet in 2018, taking Tesla private at $420 per share, which led to SEC, a different SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission intervention. And he's a guy who's dodging lawsuits, dodging overreach, dodging SEC intervention all the time. And a big piece, Craig, that I think people have forgotten, when he was out stumping for Trump in Pennsylvania, he had a vested interest in wanting Trump to win. because he had a very frank conversation with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson said, if Biden gets reelected or Harris, I forget where it was on the timeline, must have been Harris, you're going to jail. And Elon Musk was like, oh yeah, if the Democrats stay in office, I'll never see my kids again. So I think it was a very self-serving thing that he needed badly the right guy to because he has no loyalty to anyone except himself is the point.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that same thing. So he's got the loyalty to himself. He's self-interest and thing. But whether you like it or not, one thing people need to actually see, and I wish that more people would actually accept the fact that if it hadn't been for him purchasing X when he did, we got to see more information come out through this thing, on both sides than ever would have been released had it still been Twitter. Because a lot of the videos that people are watching, like you would never have seen, like those reporters getting drug out of it. You wouldn't have access to a lot of these things because you had people that couldn't put their accounts out there. They're getting banned. They're getting shut down. Now you can see this stuff in both sides. I mean, there's even people, like I said, I follow the Young Turks. They even talk about it. They'll even say, we have the ability to show stuff that before was getting popped and we weren't even able to say, we'd get shut down. Right? These things would get popped. And that's, so I just, it's kind of like you said, it's self-interest, but you could also see it's also providing the benefit. And that's one of the beauties of these two. It's like, it's both the good and the evil all, it's like, so which one outweighs them more? You can see the bad side, but at the same time, it's like, man, it's like, the upside to this is going to be pretty nice.
Yeah. And we're about to get into that. Musk companies have benefited from substantial government subsidies and contracts. And some people talk about this. It really bothers them. Tesla's EV tax credits, SpaceX's NASA partnership, which allow him to wield influence over policy direction in these industries. Now, keep in mind that Bezos has his own space program. There's the guy, Branson. So when you're outsourcing because the government can't afford certain things, these guys bring immense power. That's why I'm doing this. And thank you everyone who's watching my ongoing disclosure series, because the numbers keep going up with each episode. The defense contractors, same thing. They're getting all kinds of government money, Craig, and they dictate terms.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, it's, like the government contract, like I saw that too, like that was one of the things, like when I researched, I was like, the pros and cons of this thing. And I'm like, because there was one thing that was pretty resounding thing. People were like, these contracts that Tesla got for their cars and stuff like that. I'm like, is it really any worse than what the feds did for Chevrolet?
Right.
And, GMC, General Motors, and they just went through that. I mean, was it really any worse? No. But what the thing is, it's like you had something that people on both sides of the aisle, absolutely, people love. They like the Tesla. They love the fact that they, recharge green, the green energy. They were going these things, but it was, you could see as soon as it became a political thing, it was just like, it's hand in hand. I mean, it's just like Trump had the same thing. He was loved by everybody, ran for office, boom, evil. Same thing with like Tesla. Everybody was like, Musk is amazing. Musk is amazing. Oh, I love it. Like he suddenly starts swinging towards the right, side of the pendulum, and boom, evil. Oh, I hate this. I hate this guy, and nothing's really changed on that aspect. Yeah. And we could talk about the my time script, so I'm not gonna bloviate too long.
No, we're good. It all is of a piece, because now we're going to talk about their relationships with U.S. presidents and advising global governments. So J.P. Morgan leveraged his financial power to influence national policy, and that's what Musk is doing. He's right out in front of it leading up to the inauguration. He bailed out the federal government during a financial crisis, the Panic of 1893. There was another one in 1907, and these were manufactured by the millionaires, by the robber barons, as they were called at the time. This is nothing new. Now we call them the global elite. Back in the day, they were called the robber barons. They controlled everything, and when they needed a reset or they wanted something new, they destroyed the old. So this is a pattern. He advised President Grover Cleveland during crises like the 1895 gold reserve emergency, where he arranged a bond sale to stabilize U.S. finances gold standard. If we go to a digital economy, Craig, we could see these billionaires, holding massive amounts of this digital currency, so they would bail everybody out. It wouldn't be the taxpayers, it would be these guys. But of course, over 120 years, they've learned a better way to cook the chicken, or whatever you want to say. Morgan had a very, very interesting relationship with Teddy Roosevelt. Very direct, very influential. Roosevelt, they would spar, and they would each take their wins. So Roosevelt won on the antitrust front, but then the panic in 1907 can't have the country fall apart with a massive hero like Teddy Roosevelt. So in rides Morgan. And so that was in 1907. This, of course, sets up the Federal Reserve. Now, here's what's ironic, folks. If you go out and you look at any of the AI and you ask them about Morgan and the Federal Reserve, what they will tell you, and this is everybody's AI, what they will tell you is what they learned was you can't have one guy with so much power that he can bail out an entire country during a crisis. So we need the Federal Reserve to stabilize and make sure the government has the power. Craig, we know that's BS. The Federal Reserve, we did a whole show on it. It's the 8 most powerful banks, one of which is Morgan Chase.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would actually say that probably JP Morgan Chase is probably the bank now.
Yeah.
Especially after what we said in the beginning of the show, just how much.
Yeah.
And Mark, I appreciate that. This is one of the best shows on history. Yeah. Because that's one of the things. I mean, I want to say that, they were at odds, but they really weren't. I mean, it's just, I made no bones in the fact that I can't stand Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
That's, he was in disagreement with Wilson during that time about who should control it. And that's one of the things where Jekyll Island, you can see these things coming in where these power players, they're fighting over who gets to control, the strings, and he was one of these, he was becoming almost, I would say JP Morgan. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. He was almost like the DC Comics kingpin.
I think that he could have been the model, or the Rockefellers, Rockefeller, who we really haven't gone into the Rockefeller family yet on the show. But Kingpin's an amalgam of these guys, absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong. Kingpin, when it wasn't Vince Vaughn, it was Vincent D'Onofrio. When he played him on the TV show, he played him autistic.
Yeah,
which makes him a very close alignment with Elon Musk. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's hear. So speaking of the Rockefellers, in 1908,
I said DC, by the way. I'm going to get crucified for that. That was Marvel. I said DC.
Kingpin is Marvel too?
Yeah, he was Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I said before I get crucified by the nerds. I apologize. It should have been said Marvel. I said DC.
You caught it before they did. Good for you. Okay. 1908 Aldrich Vreeland Act, which provided temporary mechanisms for financial stability. The Aldrichs married in with the Rockefellers. So you got this Illuminati-esque in the sense of Wiesenthal and that general who wrote the letter, his name escapes me, around World War I, saying you play both sides and you engineer wars and all. Now, all of this laid the groundwork for the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. We've covered that in a show. Craig's baby was Woodrow Wilson, so we did all that. So I invite you to review those shows at your leisure. J.P. Morgan and Company then established strong ties with European banking houses. Rothschilds in London, Bleichroder Bank in Berlin, and this set him up to be a key intermediary between American and European markets. And that's where that fortune exploded, Craig, when he went
Yeah.
international. So, oh yeah, I'll take my domestic hits, and you're going to see this with Elon Musk too. Elon Musk is very international. Anyway, Morgan is facilitating the flow of capital across the Atlantic. He's underwriting bonds for governments and European corporations, and then he finances the British and the French during World War One. But the robber barons were playing both sides. And we really see that in World War II, where the British royal family, the Bank of Reparations in England, the Rockefellers, the early days of the Dulleses, all of these guys were so heavily invested in Nazi Germany. Henry Ford, all of these guys. But we really see the seeds here, just like Musk is tied up in the other global wars that we have now.
For me, it almost felt a little bit like J.P. Morgan was. Almost like he was drawing. He drew inspiration from the Templars in the way they did their banking setup, to where it was like he was able to set up like this worldwide. It was it's like he had that vision to go, expand and go beyond, and take. So instead of these individual ones that kind of all competed, what was the God, I can't think. It's the name of the movie's failing me right now, but it was like, I will drink your milkshake. That famous that line where he was about the oil thing, where it's like, you don't have to sell me the land, but I'm going to drill right underneath you, and I'm going to pull the oil out, and I will drink your milkshake. That was his that was the famous line in the movie, and J.P. Morgan was almost like that. It's like, if you're not going to work, I'm just going to come over there and take it.
Oh yeah. No question. And he carefully played it. It's a very, very interesting thing. Our daughter's staying with us. She's been with us she was supposed to leave yesterday. She's here for an extra week because of the weather. And we've been watching all the different Titanic movies and the mini series and all that. And of course, JP Morgan was majority owner in the White Star Line. And it gave rise to a conspiracy theory that his three biggest enemies, Guggenheim, Astor the Fourth, and another person, they all drowned on the Titanic. The problem with that is you can't control something like that. But oh man, when you have the luck of the devil, dude, and he had a room reserved, and he decided to stay in Italy and get a massage. It's very interesting. I'm not implying at all that he controlled that. But man, when you have a certain kind of luck, it's your liner and your biggest three competitors, your biggest three non-cooperative competitors all go down on one of your ships. That's interesting.
Have you heard that conspiracy about it that wasn't the Titanic?
Oh,
that was that was the sister ship. I'm like, I looked at her, I'm like going, but this is, I mean, like, how would you hide this? I mean, where'd the other ship go? I mean, it's just, it's like, they're like, well, if you look at the photo, like here, the ship was like this. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's more, I mean, I think out of all the conspiracies, I think I would be more online to accept that that he knew what was coming, and that's why he didn't get on it. I'd be willing to play with that conspiracy, but yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, talk about luck. I mean, you just happen to be it's like that person that misses the flight and that's the one that crashes. Yeah, it was just kind of like that. I mean, I'm more that's what it was, just sheer luck. But I mean, I would be willing to dip my toes in that conspiracy on that. It was intentional.
I'm going to throw this out here. I'm just going to throw this out here because why the hell not? Because I was having an interesting conversation with actually Reverend Michael Carter, who's coming back on the show in March. We're going to talk about exopolitics. It'll be an amazing show. Folks, he's got some episodes airing. They're supposed to air in March, but with everything going on in LA, they might not. You're going to want to check in on the next new episodes with Reverend Michael Carter because he's going to make really big revelations. So there you go. I think I'm allowed to say that. So anyhow, oh, Craig, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Okay. Can you help me out?
Michael Carter. We're talking about.
Oh, we were talking about
Titanic.
Oh, no, we were talking about tech to possibly see the future.
Yes.
So W.T. Stead also died on the Titanic. He was the editor-in-chief of the Pall Mall Gazette. 10 or 12 years earlier, he wrote a short story about a similarly named ship that struck an iceberg and went down. This was like 10 or 12 years before it happened. Speaking of Elon Musk and Mars, Werner von Braun in 1954 wrote a book where he said the man who leads the cult to Mars is named Elon, Elon. Eisenhower may have had the Orion Cube. There's S4 with the Einstein-Rosen bridge and Alice's rabbit hole and all that kind of stuff. Maybe some of these really powerful people are able to see the future. I don't know. Let me be clear, folks.
Listen to the book on Barron Trump.
Yeah.
That's right there. Yeah, that's right there too. Like I said, how do you have something that is that dead on? I mean, like I said, that there's always that coincidence thing, but I mean, come on, the sketches look like him. Yeah. All these. I said, yeah, there's this. I mean, I could be that there might have been something. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, the Nazi Germany was way, way superior to everybody, and it's like, so I'm willing to say that something during like this time, especially in those, somebody discovered something, they came across something, and because I've always said that too. It's like the 1950s. How do we go from transistors and all this stuff in the 1940s to suddenly, boom, we are off? And it all calls right around that Roswell time. Something was discovered that propelled us into this next sphere. And I'd say that same thing. Something happened in the 1920s and 30s. Something was found, because how do you go from wagons, steam engines, you do all this stuff, to suddenly you are just pow, you were off in industrially. I mean, you don't go from propellers to rocket engines in a couple of years.
Well, there was, and you and I talked about this when we did Nazi occult. Maria Orsini, right? They were supposedly through the Vril Society and Tool, they were in communication with intelligences on the moon. And, on one hand, this all sounds incredibly fantastical. On the other hand, a lot of it tracks. It could be as simple too as when something in history, right? Time isn't linear, it's circular, it all happened at once, all these spiritual physics concepts, Indra's net and all of that. If something is so profound, it must light things up. And people who can clue into these things, they know about it. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
We could do a 3-hour show.
Oh, easily. So he raised billions of dollars through bond sales in the United States for World War I, strengthened U.S. economic ties to the Allied powers, solidified Morgan's global influence, and then, of course, think about the Treaty of Versailles. And then think about the Marshall Plan. Oh, okay. So I know it's really hard. Did you hear yet a couple days ago, Gavin Newsom is so psyched about the rebuild. He's so psyched about LA 2.0. High rails. We're going to be ready for the Olympics. We have a Marshall Plan. That is what Newsom said. We have a Marshall Plan for California. Folks, if you don't really understand the Marshall Plan, it was the most powerful people, backed by people like Morgan and the Rockefellers, who reorganized the world. They reorganized the world. They created Israel. They split Germany into 2 parts. And that, I think, Craig, was really the cementing, right? League of Nations became the United Nations.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. This is one you can clearly see that he was one of the driving forces for this change. And so I don't know, you could definitely tell that through the research. I don't know if you found this. It seemed like it went from more of the industrialist capitalist thing. As soon as he went abroad, I almost feel like that he came into contact with the old world, and by people he ran into like the old families, the old the ones where everybody sees the Forbes wealthy list. These families are not on that list because Musk doesn't even have isn't even close to the money that these things. I mean, think John Wick.
Yeah.
This is the this is the table, and
Oh, the
that's why I feel like,
Continental, yeah.
well, the table, just the
Yeah.
group that controls everything,
Right.
and that's why
Right.
I feel like through the research, it almost looked like when he started going international and doing all that stuff,
Yeah.
that's when it seems like he got his seat at the table.
Oh, I agree. That was the thing about on the heels of the Federal Reserve Act. So
Yeah.
leading up to the very, very leading edge, because that was 1913. World War I is what, 1914.
Mhm.
Established strong ties with European banking houses, Rothschild in London and Bleichroder in Berlin. So yeah, I mean that was it. You're game on, Craig. Absolutely right. That is absolutely right. So let's talk about Musk and the president. So he had some interaction with Barack Obama over energy policies. First term with Trump, uh, served on advisory councils for tech and economic policy, but then they quickly had policy agreements, and that's going to happen again. That's going to
Yeah.
happen again. And he distanced himself. One of the things that he was pissed off about was the U.S. withdrawal from Paris Climate Agreement. I was very surprised, Craig, not being like an Elon Musk fanboy. I didn't know about his alternate energies beyond the cars, the EV vehicles, but Solar City. He was pissed about the Paris Climate Agreement. This is really going to be interesting with the Trump guys. You know, Jim Justice is a U.S. Senator now, and Patrick Morrisey is the governor of West Virginia. That's a state that I'm intimately acquainted with, is why I bring it up. And the coal guys are hopping and jumping, and they're thrilled.
Yeah.
So that's a real horn lock there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the biggest things too. It's just, it, especially when you see like the climate stuff, you saw everybody was, you know, was looking at like, how could we walk away from these things? How could we do these? How can we walk with it? But when you look at it, you could see when you actually dig into it, it never restricted the people that actually are the biggest polluters in the world. It didn't restrict them
Mhm.
at all. So the Asian
No.
countries, I said, they didn't have any restrictions. You could see the ones that were basically getting kneecapped were the ones that are actually the driving economic forces. So the Western
Mm.
Europe, America, were the ones that were taking the brunt of these caps, because then
Mm.
they couldn't, and so it felt like one of those things. It was kind of just like what was happening like in California. People are realizing when it starts affecting them, all of a sudden it's just like, oh crap,
Yeah.
no, I'm mad. And that's one of those things. It's just kind of like what we're talking about. People are going to find out in California. Did you see that? Oh God, his name. Why is it? Oh, why can't I remember names today? He did an interview and he was talking about these elites in LA are going to have a real huge wake up call when they go to pull a permit.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
once they do that, they're going to realize that all these things that they put in place through California and through these infrastructures, so a lot of these ones are going to realize the things that they've been voting, the things that they've been supporting for, are not going to let them build. You think anybody's going to approve a permit so you can build another building right on the coast
Right.
in Malibu? It's not going to
Right.
happen. You're not
Yeah.
going to rebuild there. They're going to, and that's what a lot of these people are going to find. I mean, these people are out there. It's going to be years before they could probably even pull a permit to remove the rubble.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with California. The insurance companies leaving, canceling 75,000 policies, whatever was going on with the water, the moving of money from the fire department. It's a lot of stuff in a place that was prone to these fires. That's the maneuvering
Yeah,
is so short-sighted. So,
because the
but
reason
anyway,
the reason I brought that last part up is because it kind of feels, because for me, when I was tell me if you had found something, but I think J.P. Morgan, it was kind of a wake up call for him when they came and they smacked him down on the railroads.
oh yeah, I think so.
and
But
and they just went like no, and then all of a sudden it was just
yeah.
like there was a deviation from the administration, and it's like that's when they broke.
Absolutely. I do think though that guys like him, guys like Musk, they have so much reserve capital and so much power that getting knocked down is almost good for the brand every once in a while.
Oh yeah, you can ride through these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Amy Joe, we're getting short on time, so I don't want to go with this too long. But folks, if you didn't see the Fox interview with Mel Gibson a couple nights ago, Mel had a lot to say about the fires and what was going on there. So so Musk, Biden and he did not get along. It was always strained. Biden excluded him from major policy events. He really didn't want him around. And then, of course, we talked about this already, stumped heavily for Trump in 2024. He's been at very high-level meetings with him, either by phone or in person. And, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy and J.D. Vance now is VP. But Ramaswamy and Musk are going to run the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. So you got to admire the cleverness, Craig. If I was in charge, I would do crap like that.
Yeah, and it was Adam Carolla was who was talking about it.
Oh, who was saying
he was talking about he was the one that was talking about what was happening after the fires. But yeah, it was just kind of like what I said with JP Morgan, and same way with Elon Musk. You could see it. It's like as soon as the administration started he was getting hit, then it's like you could see this lurch to it's like just like fast, veer to the next side. And I don't know the pendulum. I mean, does it swing too far and then it comes? We don't know. Yeah. It's one. I mean, I know a lot of people because you can see like how JP Morgan suddenly became really involved in policy and stuff. You're seeing that with the Elon Musk now with the government, with DOGE now, Department of Government, Efficiency.
Efficiency.
A lot of people are freaking out, but I'm like, I think I said it last show. I think we can do away with shrimp on treadmills. I mean, I don't think we need to spend $1.5 million to see what happens to a shrimp on a treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm like, we, maybe put that research towards, something, that's actually benefits society, and that's the type of stuff. And I like the fact that, they stated it's going to be real time as we find this waste, we're going to put it out there.
Right.
But at the same time, how far does this partnership go? Does it come that Elon Musk has the ear and he's actually, he starts to steer the administration, I'd really like you to do it this way. I mean, I think Peter Thiel probably has a little more hold on that one because he's got his fingers in the actual establishment.
Yeah.
Than just the Elon Musk who can write the checks.
Right. But don't forget they came up together, right?
Yeah.
They made their hundreds of millions of dollars that allowed them to then bifurcate. And Eric Schmidt and what's his name, Sergey, whatever, they split from Google, did their own things. Mark Zuckerberg and his partners, they split and went to do it. It's good to divide and conquer. It's good to not have the same people pissing in the same cup. It diversifies. You know what's interesting? And we're getting to the end of our time. I only have a little bit more on my formal notes. Efficiency can be a really dirty word. Efficiency sounds like Nazism. Efficiency sounds like 1984. Efficiency is very close to austerity. Everybody's got to tighten their belts. But we'll be talking about the tech oligarchs and all that stuff, folks, this year. You can count on it. Again, and we talked about a lot of this. Musk consults with governments on tech energy policies, cryptocurrency, which is going to be huge, renewable energy, AI, securities trading. But if you think about Neuralink, they just announced their third human subject. He works closely with global leaders to further SpaceX's ambitions, including NASA, which we talked about, the European Space Agency. And while Trump was entertaining the prime minister of Italy at Mar-a-Lago a week or two ago, Musk was in Rome putting together a $1.5 billion deal for SpaceX.
Yeah.
So I think it's really the whole point of doing this episode was it's really dangerous when non-government people have really big government influence. I always talk about the defense contractors because I'm doing this disclosure thing. I almost said Disclosure Project, but that belongs to another. That belongs to another guy who's very iffy. So I don't want to. No sex tapes and no Disclosure Project.
That's
but
right.
the disclosure work that I am doing, it's so dangerous. He's very heavily involved in Saudi Arabia, folks, where there's investment in Tesla. He's negotiating right now for a Tesla EV factory in India. So again, Craig, when you're meeting with all these high-level international people, you are not representing America. You are representing you.
Yourself. Because India, you don't have the restrictions like you do.
Yeah.
And so he can, it's pretty much, he can have unfettered production there without a lot of the oversight. And that's one of the things, like I said, you look at it like, oh man, we're going to have all these vehicles. Yeah, it's not, it's a self-interest.
Oh, it absolutely. Yeah. And that's what you gotta know. He's got a gigafactory in China. Starlink played a huge role in Ukraine. And he buys lithium in South America from the leading Chinese extractor. So there are 3 Chinese companies who really work on lithium extraction in South America. So if you look at South American leadership, all that kind of stuff, folks, it is about lithium is the new gold. It's the new oil. It may have played a factor in the Ashland region in North Carolina is very, very rich in lithium. It's one of the few places in the United States where there are lithium deposits.
Yeah.
So this is real. Yeah. And like Joe says, this is why they're wanting Greenland. So check this out. Was there anything else? No, that was it. Trump Roosevelt. So I mentioned the media manipulation. So Trump every day holds court in Mar-a-Lago. It's exactly what Teddy Roosevelt did. It's amazing. But of course, as you know, it's not only Greenland, it's the Panama Canal. Well, Teddy Roosevelt was the president when we built the Panama Canal. Check this out, folks. So they were working with a company, I believe it was a French company, who was going to do most of the contracting. And Colombia controlled Panama. The United States said, F this. They secretly backed Panama declaring independence from Colombia so they could deal with Panama and get much, much, much more favorable. So here we are. I mean, it really, Craig, it really has come full circle.
Oh yeah. No, it's you can see these. That's you're right on with that. I mean, it's a lot of people are there focused on this stuff, and my final word here too is this: when people watch this, it's like Biden just signed, the moratorium on drilling, in the Gulf of Mexico. So everybody was there. Everybody was so focused. Like, so Trump felt like he said held his court, and he's like, "Now we're going to rename it to the Gulf of America." And people are like, "Oh my God, the arrogance." I'm like, no. It's actually, if you look at it, unless they specifically laid out exact parameters of all the stuff, like you can't do this. If all they said is you cannot drill in the Gulf of Mexico, you rename it to the Gulf of America, that no longer applies. You can drill in the Gulf of America. You just can't drill in what is known as the entity of Gulf of Mexico. Well, we no longer call it the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. And it's one of those things. So that's the thing. It has nothing to do with just like my ego. It's he basically, this is geopolitical moves. Like, we're not going to invade Greenland. We're not going to invade Panama Canal. We're not going to do these things. What he's doing is he's sending shots across the bow of the other political saying, this is the thing. And so now they're so focused on, oh my God, over here. They're not paying attention to what, he has a thing, whether you like him or not. The art of the deal says this is the thing. It's all about throwing your opponent off their game. Yeah. It has nothing to do with what you want to do. It's just, I got to throw my opponent off. If you get them to where their footing is shaky, you have an advantage. And that's what it is.
And it is very old school industrial revolution, robber baron politics.
Yeah, they didn't go to the Carnegie.
You go back and you look,
Yeah, J.P. Morgan didn't go in and like, all right, hey, what's the fair thing to? No, he's going to throw them off their game. It's like, man, it really sucks that they went in there and they found one of your plants was all rickety and they're getting ready to shut you down. I mean, I could buy it off you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah. That's exactly it, and it's very mafia. You send in your representatives. You don't meet directly. Like Roosevelt was a great summoner. I want Morgan in my office, so Morgan sends his muscle, and Roosevelt's like, "Who the hell are you? I want to talk to Morgan." And they're like, "No, you don't talk to Mr. Morgan. You talk to us. We talk to Mr. Morgan, and then maybe Mr. Morgan talks to you." So, not to make light of any of this, folks, but this is a real pattern. Craig, I just found this out. It's very interesting. It's very in line with the temporal astrology and all that kind of stuff. January 10th, Barrett post, BHARAT post, Elon, EV cars are not the future of Tesla. The Optimus robot is the AI powered Optimus robot. So a couple of things, 1 million Optimus robots by 2027. Now he already unleashed, if you guys saw around Christmas time, a bunch of influencers got $10,000 robots. They were carrying their bags at the mall, and these are all these Musk robots. AI powered Optimus production. So this will be the next gen starting in 2026. I'm seeing some things on the Instagrams and the TikToks and all that it's going to start in 2025. I'm pretty sure the next gen serious production is going to start in 2026. He'd like to have 100,000 in the first year, and the goal is by 2035 to have robots at the ratio of 5-to-1 humans. It'll be a $10 billion business. Yeah, so that's where it's heading.
Dun, 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 dun.
Wow, that kind of sounded like our exit music.
No, it was just like Terminator.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Man.
it's just like all.
Crazy.
I mean, you can do iRobot with Will Smith. It's like all of a sudden it's just like you're gonna be walking along with your little partner carrying the bags, and all of a sudden its face turns red, and you're like, yeah.
Atlas Shrugged meets the head of Skynet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, I apologize, folks. Like I said, there was a little bit of a scheduling snafu. My daughter's got a big thing to do at 8:30 on the internets because she's here unexpectedly for an extra week, which we love. And then next week I am doing Road to Disclosure Part 4. I may have a very, very special guest join me. My fingers are crossed. So tune in. You may not just see me, but a very special guest. And Craig and I got we're gonna do more Sinister Ministries, the Family Shinoji Church. We're gonna do Scientology. This whole thing, this whole story with Neil Gaiman, Craig.
Oh yeah.
He grew up in Scientology. His dad ran the Scientology church in the United Kingdom.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of influential people that have been in, that are either involved or have been involved in this thing. I mean, it's like you said, it's that'll be a great show. Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna do Dead Internet, Fate versus Free Will. We're gonna do Bill Gates. We're gonna do VP picks, which the audience is very, very psyched about that one. The weird and the ugly and the nonsensical VP picks. So that's
why you go these routes when it's like they're not even going to help you.
Sarah Palin or an Admiral Googly with So
I mean, like I said, we'll get those. Just like you said, why pick Sarah Palin? Why pick Tim Walz? I mean, this is the guy that's not going to help nationally. Shapiro was a much better choice.
Yeah,
but because he was Jewish, and why he didn't fit the thing. But then it's like then they went with Tim Walz, so he's still white. I'm like, it's like so they didn't change there. They just went, because they wanted to make sure they didn't offend part of their base. So they went with somebody who wasn't Jewish. And it's like, and you're like, where to get you? Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah. So it's like one of these things. Why do they pick these crazy picks?
That's right. Why was Harris picked when her and Biden absolutely hated and destroyed each other in the first? And she got less than 1%. So, all right, we're going to read all your comments. There's a ton of comments. We're going to read them as we do the outro.
All right, everybody.
Go ahead, sir.
Good night. We will see you next week.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind?